What up, you guys? Welcome back to Pro Publications YouTube channel. It's me, Rich, and today I want to talk about what I find thematically interesting about Superman. And I'm not necessarily focused on the movie per se, but this is some of the reasoning why I wanted to watch the Superman movie, which I have watched, and overall, hella good movie. But thematically, the character has always called to me for three main reasons, right? And this is obviously based off of my reading of Superman. There's probably 100 other iterations that don't coincide with this, but the things I always found interesting was this idea of the immigrant story of this person fleeing a dying planet, and then lands on planet Earth and then adopts the custom of Earth. And one of the things I've always liked about the Superman character is that it's cultural appreciation versus assimilation. And it's one of those things that I've always enjoyed, that the idea wasn't that he came to Earth and then ceased to be Kryptonian, but rather that he is a Kryptonian on Earth, and so then the benefits of his Kryptonian culture, right, his Kryptonian lifestyle, science, and all that stuff is something that now is for the betterment of Earth, right? It's something that we as a planet now have as a benefit because he's been, he's become a part of Earth. So this idea of cultural appreciation versus assimilation is something that's always kind of stood out to me, through the Superman story, right? And it's obviously because he is, kind of a metaphor for the immigrant, right? Another thing that I've always enjoyed about Superman, the Superman comics that I've read, was this idea of morality versus legality. And the reason why that's stood as something that Superman always deals with is because the idea is doing the moral thing isn't necessarily always doing the legal thing. And I think that no one more than Superman as a character has done that. And what do I mean by that? The Superman character is very conspicuous, right? In the DC universe, people know when Superman shows up to do something. It's not like a ninja like Batman. And beyond that, it's this idea that if you could, should you? Right? Because Superman ultimately, in the DC universe, most powerful, strongest, right? If it's just a straight up fist brawl, who are we kidding, right? So for that character to be interesting, it's not necessarily, can he brawl with this person, right? Can he hold his ground with this person? That's not very interesting. What's interesting is the moral argument. Should he hold his ground with this person? Should he intervene? Should he do whatever moral conundrum you put him in? And for the most part, Superman, the version that I've always liked about him, the version that people talk about as hope, right, and all this other good stuff, and goodwill to man and all that, is the idea that you should always do the moral thing, right? And even when morality goes counter to the legal system, you should always do the moral thing. And I like that because it is an idea of lawlessness, right? But lawlessness in the name of good. And I've always enjoyed that about the character thematically. Never mind, there's other things and more noodles and nuances about the character that I like. But overall, that is in a nutshell what has always called to me from that character. And so that the movie deliver. The movie absolutely delivered. I absolutely enjoyed it. I thought that James Gunn, who I've liked ever since I saw that movie Super, is when James Gunn was cemented as a director I like to watch. But he has such a good pace of the movie. The pace of the movie just flows so well. Very funny. The characters all felt fleshed out. You understood who and why and everything. And the movie just really flowed, but it really invited you into this whole universe. And I thought it was really good, really well done. So if you haven't seen Superman, go ahead and watch it. And if you haven't read a Superman comic, there's some really good ones out there. I won't say that all of them are good. Again, some people, they get really lazy and they just Superman's gonna fight, and that's boring. That's boring writing, But Grant Morrison did Superman, and that was pretty good. And I'm reading his Wonder Woman run right now, but yeah, I definitely dig the movie, and like I said, thematically, that's what I enjoy about Superman. So if you guys get a chance, go ahead and do that. Regardless of which, if you guys are interested in the zines I make, like my Superman sketch fanzine, that just has a bunch of different art that I did based off of the movie. But beyond that, go ahead and hit the link in the show notes for this zine, other zines that I make, buttons, stickers, and t-shirts. And please like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys, guess what, tomorrow. Lights.